What's good, YouTube? How you guys doing? Appreciate the love recently. I've had some nice comments. People have been saying some decent things to me. Had some interesting videos posted up. Sometimes I just get down, basically because I don't know, man. Sometimes you just kind of feel hopeless, or you feel like your situation isn't going to change and things like that. And it's been a long time for certain things, but I think putting things in perspective and, perspective in the sense that we're all living through the same stuff, man. We're all living through the same matrix, and there's always the caveat where people say, oh, well, it's just you. It's like, no, we're all living through real tough times. Maybe the end times, or maybe real close to the end times, right? Real sad what's going on. I hate to harp on it. It is sad, to see it all kind of unravel and see just how corrupt the world really is. It's almost like you'd rather go back to the veneer of decency. Of course, it was always corrupt, which is the point, right? Um, to whatever degree, it was always corrupt. History is brutal. Um, we just got to thank God that we're not as unlucky as some, But, yeah, man, I've just been doing a lot of soul searching lately. Just going through some, I don't know, existentialism, I guess, and kind of been doing a lot of questioning God and questioning his love for me and things like that. And he's always done little things for me, and he's always taking care of me, and things like that. And I appreciate that. It's cute, it's nice, and I don't mean to demean God's provision or God's care. I'm not trying to mock God by saying it's cute or whatever. But what I mean is, like, it gets to a point where you're like, okay, yeah, all right, but it could be a lot better. It's like, thank you, but it could be a lot better, right? Like, thank you for the basics, but it could be a lot better, and it's hard because, there's always a caveat, right? There's always something to say. To say, well, as a Christian, you're supposed to suffer, or, well, love and marriage and finding a woman, that's not a necessity, or, like, I've heard it all. I've heard it all in my decades. And it seems like, when you're down and out and you're down in the pits, and you're in the despairs of depression and things like that, you feel like God just is playing some trick on you, or he doesn't love you, or why did he bless all these other people and not me, and then you feel like, what did I do wrong? You feel like, why not me? Or, like, is it something I did? Is it, some sin I did, or some sin that I haven't repented for? Or, that must be it. It must be this sin that I've been struggling with, or it must be, you know, I had opportunities in the past to love this girl or love that one or whatever, and be, maybe it was my fault because I should have tried harder, or I shouldn't have done this or that. And I don't know, man. Maybe some of that's true. Maybe if I would have had a different attitude and buckled down and tried to really make it work with certain ones, but I never felt. See, my thing was that, my situation's a little different, I guess, because I'm coming from a place where I've lived a lot of different lives. Like, I used to play basketball. I was on the basketball team. I was the cool kid. I was one of the cool kids hanging out with the cool crowd. That used to be me in high school. And then I went from that to like being an absolute nobody, almost on the streets, thankfully never have. I had family who cared for me and things like that. But, I moved cities and I was just an absolute nobody and didn't have any friends for a long time. And then I went from that to transitioning over into going to church and really consecrating myself to God and really just voraciously reading theology and jumping right into deep spirituality and deep Bible study and things like that. So I've bounced around, man, and I, have my fair share of sin and things that I've done. And, I used to party in high school and stuff before I really gave my life to Christ. And, and then I've been trying since then, since I got sick and then I got disabled and I got sick, I struggle with a sleep disorder that's legitimately disabling. And learning, like what it is to suffer, what it is to, have loss. I've lost all my friends, lost girls, love interests, women that I dated for a couple years turned their backs on me, backstabbed me, cheated on me, told me I wasn't good enough for them because I didn't make enough money. Had many girls say that I dated, and I don't know, man. But then on the other hand, I look at it where like, I had opportunities. I could have really tried to make it work with some of these girls. I was a bad boy. Like so I went from being sick and just being nobody after I moved cities to be consecrating myself to God and really seriously taking church seriously and reading and studying the Bible and praying and going to this church, which I later found out was kind of a cult. I mean, it basically is a cult, but there was a lot of spirituality there, so I was exposed to a lot of spirituality and really loving God and things like that. So I've just had this like saga of a life, and how I view it is like I don't want to have a saga of a life. That's how I've always viewed it. That's been my attitude, is like I don't it's not an adventure to me. It's not fun to me. To suffer, to lose everything, to lose your friends, to be a nobody, right? I grew up poor and things like that, and that was a suffering. I was always suffering as a kid, in one way or another. I got bullied at certain times in my life. I experienced dysfunction with my parents, and I've seen stuff. I've seen stuff, and I've been around certain people where I'm like, dang, like, I know I've lived a life that like a lot of people haven't lived. I again, relatively, right? I mean, there's some people who lived amazing. I'm not saying my life is amazing. What I'm saying is like I've seen things, I've done things, and I don't really want that, if that makes sense. Like, what's funny is I've always wanted, like when I was a kid, I always wanted just a normal family. I hated that my parents were dysfunctional. I hated that we were poor. I always wanted just kind of normality and to just be kind of a good kid who that's kind of what I wanted for a while. For a while I kind of wanted to be like a thuggy, and I was getting into rap and stuff. But what I always just wanted was like to have money, to be able to go do things. My parents have a decent car. We had a crappy car my whole life growing up. I was embarrassed of our car, so I had my mom drop me off like 2 blocks away from school. I used to be so insecure going to school and stuff. I'd like be meticulous about how I dressed and like how my hair was and stuff, and like really insecure because when you're coming from poverty and that's just what my mindset was. I wanted to hide that. I wanted to hide that I was poor. I wanted to hide that I didn't have a good family, a home. So for me, I was like trying to hide who I was. I was trying to hide, you know, just who I was. Just hide the fact that I was embarrassed about my life. Trying to fake it, and then I felt fake for a lot of years. I felt fake, and I felt like I was just trying to perform to have friends, and I was, and it was working, but it was a performance, and eventually they kind of turned their back on me because certain things happened where I couldn't be that guy anymore. I was trying to be this cool guy and dress cool, and it was working, and maybe they were the same way, I don't know, but eventually that fell through to where I couldn't keep up the facade anymore, and then I lost my friend group, and it was like, I guess they never really loved me in the first place, but I don't know, so I went from all that to 18, 19, becoming an adult, sort of having more, learning how to have more self-esteem, learning how to have more confidence, working on my confidence, going to the gym, exercising, and then getting sick, right? At the very time that I needed to be, normal, the very time that I needed to be sane and normal and mentally healthy, I started having a lot of depression, and I got sick, and I couldn't sleep, and I started having mental breakdowns and things like that. And I was trying to work, and I was trying to go to school, and I was trying to make it happen. I was like, all right, I'm 19, 20, let me figure life out. What's this all about, And then I had all these breakdowns. I got sick, and so there's just always been suffering, and it's never been like, it's rarely if ever been like ideal in my life. I don't think it's ever had, no, for sure, 100%, it's never been ideal in my life. I've always had some major handicap where like, oh yeah, like, even though I'm athletic and I'm cool and I'm funny, I'm not that good looking. Or like, even though I'm dress cool and people like me, and I'm part of the cool group, I'm poor, or my home life is crap, so there's always like something that's holding me back. I'm never like, dang, I'm just everything's good. I dress fine, I'm good looking, people like me, and like, and it's not that I'm saying that life needs to be like that per se, but what I'm saying is that that's what I've always kind of wanted, where like, I've always wanted things to be going well, or like, and then after a certain point in time, I was like, you know what, I don't care about money anymore. I guess I'm ambitious, and I guess I'm idealistic and all this stuff, but then there was a certain point where it's like, you know what, I don't care about money anymore. I just wish I had a woman. Right. And that didn't work, so it's like, I can't win for losing. It's just like, maybe I'm just destined to be a loser. I felt like that. And then, like, your mind tells you, well, no, you're not a loser because you have God, and you have, you're special to God. And then you follow all this Bible stuff, and you watch all this content about God and stuff. And then it kind of hypes you up and sort of psychs you out to where, like, you're, oh, you know what, maybe I do mean something to God and stuff. Da, da, da. But then your mind says, well, if I mean something to God, how come he never blessed me? How come my life has been so crappy? Like, what's the point? Oh, am I going to get a greater reward in heaven because of that? I don't know if that's true. Right? Am I going to get a greater reward? It's like, maybe or maybe not. Or maybe I just got the short end of the stick. I just got dealt some crappy cards, and I was never able to turn my cards into a winning hand in any way. You know? How do you turn your crappy cards into a winning hand when nothing's working? You don't have the ability to do it, and you're just surviving, and I guess, I shouldn't complain. I'm thankful for what I have, the the few things that I have, or the few moments that I've had in my life. I've had some good times, I've been around some interesting women. I've had a lot of cool friends. Honestly, to tell you the truth, I've been in certain circles that were pretty cool. I guess. Of course, it's like, what is that? Like ultimately it's vanity, right? Okay, I had some cool friends. All right, and I did some cool stuff. That's cool. We went, jumped off cliffs and went swimming in lakes, and we played basketball together. We went and did this or did that, or I spent some time with this woman, and we really enjoyed things there. And but everything comes to an end, and it's like I'd trade all that in for one good friend. I'd trade all that in for one good woman and a family and a stable, steady home life, and that's what I've always wanted. And it's just like, and then to add insult to injury, it's like, you know, a woman that I loved that I've really struggled getting over. She went and married some guy because he had a house, and now she's living the life that I wanted to have with her with some other guy because he had a house and he wasn't disabled and he wasn't broke like me. And she even said it too to me. She even said that basically. And you tell yourself, oh well, you dodged a bullet, but she's living a great life. You tell yourself, oh well, she's just materialistic anyways, but she's living a great. I don't know if she's really living a great life. Maybe she doesn't really love him. I don't know. Maybe she's miserable. I don't know. I don't know. But it's not the point. The point is like she's married and she said she loved the guy and they got a house together, so it seems decent, right? And so it's just like it's hard. It's hard to love God in the midst of that, man. It's hard. It's hard to reconcile what your life really is when you just get shitted on, and of course, I'm not trying to have a pity party per se, I'm not trying to, even though I kind of am, but I'm not trying to I'm not trying to just sit here and woe is me, it's not the point. I'm just trying to piece it all together and figure out, like, I don't know, it's like, I don't know, man. It's hard. I think a lot of people have it worse than me. I'll say that. A lot of people have it worse than me. Way worse than me. And they got dealt way worse hands than I did. And I'm thankful for what I have. I'm thankful for the little bit that I have. And I'm appreciative. And I'm trying to do my best with the hands that I was dealt. You know, Definitely when I was younger, I would spend more time, you know, feeling sorry for myself and quitting and why try kind of attitude, and it was hard then because I didn't have as much resolve and as much backbone as I do now. But it still is hard. It still gets frustrating. It still feels like, you know, a lot of times it feels like I've been forsaken, even though I'm sure I haven't, according to my faith. But it's like at the same time that even makes it worse. It's almost like I wish I was forsaken because then I could have an excuse, or not an excuse, but then I could have a logical reason for why these things are happening to me. Because if I'm not forsaken, then what the hell is the point of all this? Because don't you love me? It's like, well, I would never put my child through the things that I've gone through, which disheartens me towards God, honestly. Just to be straight up, it honestly disheartens me towards God, because like I would never put. If I love my child, I would absolutely give him good things, and a lot of times I walk around and I'm like, man, the Bible's just full of empty promises. That's how I feel. I say that too. I'm like, I tell God he's a liar and things like that, and when I'm talking to you're a liar, you lied to me. You told me if I followed you, you'd take care of me and you give me the desires of my heart, and you know. And there's always those Christians out there who are like, oh, well, who are you to tell God what to do? Who are you, there's always the caveat that like, oh, it's my fault, or I don't actually need those things, or it's like, nah, man, that's not what love is, man. If I'm a parent and I love my child, I'm not going to put him through hell. I'm going to give him good things. And even the Bible says that. The Bible says, if you being evil give your children good know how to give your children good gifts, how much more your Father in heaven will give you good gifts. I I've read a lot of the Bible. I know what the Bible says. You know, people can't fool me on the Bible. I can tell you that much. And I've, reading those things when you're young. I mean, I'm not saying I know everything about the Bible, but I know a lot. So, reading those things when you're young, it's like, oh wow, God's going to take care of me. God's got my back. And then just this tragedy happens after tragedy after tragedy after environmental suffering after environmental suffering, and then you're just like, I don't think that was true. I don't think he was I don't think he was being honest with that verse or something, or maybe, and it causes you to question everything. Is God even real? Is God even real? Like, if he is, he must not love me. I don't understand why this is happening. And I don't know, man. It's just there's always silver linings. Like, it could be a lot worse. It really could. It could be a lot worse. And I hope it doesn't get worse. So I'm not trying to piss God off or anything, but it's like, come on, man. At what point is it like, what is this even benefiting? Like, is this just some kind of joke? Is this you have some kind of bet with Satan, like you had with Job or something against me? Like, come on, man. Like, come on, dude. Like, at what point, like, can you just bless me, or can you just stop this stuff? Can you just, come on, man. Give me something to be happy about. Give me at least give me a woman. Okay, I'm broke, I'm disabled, everything sucks. At least bring me a woman so I can at least have some companionship. I don't even want friends anymore. I don't care about that anymore. Like I used to a lot care about friends. Used to always want a friend, but I don't even care about that anymore. Just bring me a woman who could be my friend and companion. Like, but no dice, huh? I just gotta watch the world end, the world burn, and I'm just alone. And other people have women, And I guess again, you could be like, well, it's just the end times. Things are unraveling. Everybody's suffering. Most people aren't even hooking up anymore. Most people aren't getting married anymore. I mean, I guess you could say that. I guess, and then also you look at it like, damn, I had opportunities and I didn't realize because maybe I was too picky. They just didn't seem right, even though I loved some of them, some of the women I was with. And the whole reason I even went with those women, I know I'm not supposed to, as a Christian, fornicate and go date around. Of course I know that. And I wanted a wife. I was in church, loving God, doing what I was supposed to be doing. Seek ye first the kingdom, and all these things will be added unto you. That's what I was doing, was seeking first the kingdom. And then all of a sudden I get rejected by this girl, rejected by that girl, feeling like a loser, like I'm not good enough, people judging me. And then I realized, dude, I'm getting disenfranchised with church. Women's standards are higher in church. Maybe I'll just go out here and be a bad boy and be a player. Just be a player. And that's basically what I did around my mid 20s, 24, 25. And it just kind of worked for a while. It worked for maybe, I don't know, about 5 years. It worked pretty well for about 5 years. Till about, from like 2000, I want to say about 2008, late 2007, 2008 to about 2016. It more or less worked. So that was about 8. Yeah, but I mean, like, it wasn't. So I'll say 5 years, because it wasn't like every year. I think there was a couple years I had some stagnation in there in between, where like I wasn't dating anybody, or there's a year or two where I was just kind of getting over this girl or trying to meet somebody else, or and then all of a sudden around 2016 it just dried up completely. Nothing was working. And we're talking online dating, but I tried to do in person a little bit, which I could have done better. I realized I had certain opportunities even when I was studying pickup artistry game in real life. I had opportunities, but I wasn't good enough at the time. Or you can make it work. It's just I don't know. I wasn't consistent enough, and I was struggling to have confidence, and there's always reasons. So when people are like, it's funny how when people are always like, oh, you can be anything you want to be. It's like, well, you can try. You can certainly try to be anything you want to be. It doesn't mean it's going to work. It doesn't mean you're going to be successful at it consistently. That takes a special it takes special circumstances, special situation. And you can be, oh no, that's just an excuse. You could say that's an excuse, but the reality is that when you have environmental limitations, physical limitations, psychological limitations, those things kill success. You know, and then you question, do I even want to be successful? Because it requires such discipline. It requires such, you know, I was successful in high school and it required a lot of discipline. I was successful, playing basketball, and I wasn't really that happy. And I wasn't even I wasn't even that disciplined. I played basketball every day for a couple hours, and that was tough. I could have been, and I wasn't even doing that. I was just kind of messing around. I wasn't like, I practiced. I was certainly practicing every day, but that's not the point. The point is like I could have been practicing in an elite way, and it was the 90s, so I didn't even know I could have been practicing way better. I didn't even learn how to practice even until a couple years after you know a couple years after it was too late. But there's kids who are practicing it when they're like 7. Elite practice. There's kids who got parents who are buying coaches, paying for coaches to practice them in an elite way when they're like 7, 8, 9, 10 years old. So by the time they hit 14, 15, they're elite. That's how if we're talking success in basketball, right? So I'm just saying, like, I mean, that's one example, but that's just what it takes to be successful. Now, if it comes to women, it's maybe not as rigid as that, but it's difficult when you're disabled and you're sick and you're tired all the time and your hormones are out of whack and you have no energy and you have to take care of your responsibilities, you have to do this, you have to do that, and you can't even find time to go out and talk to women. That was one of my hardest things, and I'm just saying, these are limitations, and right, and then it's like, yeah, but do I really want to be a player? And then like there's all these contradictions, right? Do I really want to date around? Do I really want to? I'd rather just have a wife. I'd rather just settle down, but I can't find anybody good. There's no options, and they all want money. Once they find out I'm broke, they don't want anything to do with me. It's just like, dude, you're screwed. The only way is if God just does a miracle. And I've never experienced a miracle like that in my life. There's been many times where I'm like, God, I really like this girl. Can you make it work? Or, can you give me this girl or whatever? And I even just pray like that. Oh, I need a miracle, or things like that. And never, it never, I don't know. And those are times where, in my deepest, darkest pits, those are the times where I'm like, man, fuck this life, like, I just don't think God loves me, man. I just don't think, I don't understand, like, I just get so dejected, and I'm just like, and then there's always insult to injury. There's always getting kicked when you're down. Like, oh, I had this friend in high school that I kind of clowned on sometimes, and you know, not really, but there was a couple times where I made fun of him or something, kind of hurt his feelings or something, and then like now he's been married for like 10 years and he's got kids and stuff, and I'm just this loser, so you think about things like that and you're like, oh man, he got the last laugh, he's living a good life, and I made fun of him. You feel like that guy in the movie who, like, he made fun of you in high school, now he's a loser. Things, You think things like that. You think things like that, you know, and you know, I don't know, you know, do people think about me that way, you know, and it's messed up, man. It's messed up. You just feel you think about everything. Everything comes to your mind. It's my fault. God doesn't, you know, God's punishing me. Everything comes to your mind, and maybe you could, and then you think about positive things too. You're like, oh well, maybe I'm like Joseph in prison, or maybe I'm like Moses on the backside of the mountain when God was training him for 40 years, or maybe I'm like, you know, Jacob when he was tending to his sheep for 40 years or whatever. Like maybe these are all just lessons and tests, so that my suffering is so that, you know, God can create in me righteousness, or maybe he's building my character, or maybe I'm growing somehow. Like maybe that's true, I don't know, but at some point you're just like, all right, man, come on, like, you know, are we done with this shit yet? Are we done? Do we got to do this until the world ends? I got to do this until Armageddon? Am I gonna like just be honest? Like, am I gonna be single until Armageddon happens? Like, what's the point of this, man? Like, come on, this isn't, you know, like fantasy anymore, spiritual fantasy. We're like, oh, I'm gonna be like Moses or whatever. Like, not that I would want that anyways, you know. Like, I don't even want that anymore. Like, when I was younger, I had ambition to be like spirit. I don't know. I don't really know what my ambition was. I mean, I was definitely ambitious for God, I guess, but you know, at a certain point, you're just like, what's the point of any of this shit? Like, I don't even know if I want to be a Christian anymore. I have no choice because I can't stop believing in God. I've tried many times, or I've tried, you know, turning my back on him. I just can't, because it's like, how do you, you know, it's like it's like stopping to drink water. It's like stopping drinking water. It's like you can't do it. You're eventually gonna get thirsty. You need water. It's like trying not to breathe, I guess. It's like I need God. Like, I have to turn my heart to God. But there's just constant suffering, and it's like, there's probably gonna be suffering either way. Even if I turn my back on God, it's like, I don't think my problems would disappear. Right? So I'm taking God for my problems, but they're not going to disappear anyways. Like, if I turn my back on God, it's not like, oh, okay, that was it. I should turn my back on God, and that was what I was missing. You know, it's like, no, I think that my environment isn't going to change, and I've heard from my studies that God is the one who arranges our environment, which is insult to injury, man, because it's like, you're the designer of this. You're the one who designed this. Come on, bro. You know, it's like, you did this. Can't you fix it? You know, I don't know. It's just, it's shitty. It's almost like it's a game or something. It's almost like it's a joke. You know, it's almost like, you know, it's almost like I'm destined to just lose. Like, that's just what God wants, you know, because he could easily make my situation better. He could easily bring me the right person. He could easily rearrange, you know, he could easily just make my life so much better. I mean, I believe in him that much. I believe that he's powerful enough to do that. He could heal me. He could bring me the love of my life. He could cause me to make more money somehow to where my situation got a lot better. He could cause me to anything, you know? And I just feel like, I don't know, man. I just feel like sometimes he doesn't love me, you know, honestly. I just feel like he really just doesn't, he just doesn't care about me that way, you know, because it's like, why did I meet all these crappy women? Is that my fault? Because I got disenfranchised with church because I was disabled, because no girl wanted me. So I went out to the world. Is that my fault that I was disabled? You know, I don't know. Is it maybe I drank too much, or maybe, but no, I had concussions when I was a kid. And it wasn't even, I wasn't the one who dropped me off of the car. My dad did that. I wasn't the one who accidentally, I mean, I did. I accidentally fell down the stairs, but like, why does something like that happen? Why does God allow something like that to happen? Why did I have three major concussions before I was 9 years old? You know, why did God allow that? I mean, my friends were drinking in high school, and they're successful now. So what's the difference? So is it because I was drinking? No, it was probably because I had a bunch of concussions. Well, why did I have those concussions? I don't know. Why did I have concussions and I was poor growing up? Why did I have concussions and I'm not that good looking? Why do I does everything have to suck? What are my good points? Where's the silver lining, right? Take the bad with the good. Well, where's the good? Right? It's like, yeah, in everybody's life, a little rain must fall, a little suffering must happen, but I've had a bit. I think I've had my fair. I think I've had not only my fair share, but other people's fair share as well. I think I've had about 5 people or 10 people's fair share of suffering, and I'm just tired, man. I'm tired of it. It's like, bro, I gotta sit here my whole life and just suffer and just watch as the world hurt hurls towards Armageddon, and you can't even give me a woman, bro. Like, what am I doing this for? And then I spent, years where I was just checked out mentally because of that, where I'm just like, man, I don't even want, like, I'm not thinking of nothing. I don't care. It's better if I don't even give a shit. It's like, it's like, why even try? What's the point? You know? And I don't know, man. Anyway, I'm not just trying to sit here and have a pity party, but I don't know what else to talk about, man. It's talked about everything ad nauseum. Um, yeah, I guess a lot of people are suffering. It sucks. I've been praying for people. I've been praying for the world. You know, maybe my prayers aren't the best. I probably don't pray specifically for certain things. I should probably pray that. I mean, I think I prayed a little bit about this, but like, how our generation is just sad and sick, and you know how we don't get married, or we don't have love anymore, things like that. It's hard, man. It's hard to pray. It's hard to pray, man. That's hard. Prayer is a hard thing to do. It's not, but it is. What's hard about it is actually remembering to do it and being consistent. That is hard. That's true. Um, it's important. I mean, I guess it's important. I don't know. I've had a lot of my prayers not answered. You know, I don't know. I mean, I guess the bottom line thing is I can't not believe. I guess that's the bottom line thing. I've always had faith in God, even though as much as like objectively I'd want to say, well, he just doesn't love me, or he's a shitty God because he doesn't help me or take care of me. I think that's true, but I can't not believe in him. That's just the bottom line thing. I've never been able to detach myself from belief because I'm just too. I've had too many experiences for one. The other thing is, it's just the most logical. There's nothing else that even. I just had too many experiences. I wish I could just be blissfully ignorant and be happy in that. I wish I could. I wish I could eat the fake steak like in the Matrix. I wish I could, man. I really wish I could be ignorant. I'm just not. I'm just not that. I'm not built like that. I have to have the truth. I have to have, you know, reality, even though it sucks and it hurts. You know, I'm addicted to reality, I guess. I'm addicted to the truth, I guess. I've been like that for many years, you know. I wish I was one of these ignorant people. Maybe I'm too smart or too intelligent. I don't know. Like maybe I don't know if I'm that intelligent, but I'm just too aware. I really wish I was numb and dumb like a lot of these people out here, man. But anyway, I'm sorry that it's not this isn't a positive one, man. I don't know. I just been feeling down lately and feeling like talking about this stuff and kind of uploading it, man. It is what it is. But anyway, I appreciate the feedback. People said some nice things to me when I made these kind of videos, and I appreciate that. But anyway, I'm getting kind of tired. I think I'm gonna end it. Appreciate y'all listening. Maybe say some prayers for me if you can. If you listen this far, maybe say some prayers for me. If anybody needs prayers, I can say some prayers for them too. I don't know. We should all pray for each other. I sometimes wonder if anybody ever prays for me. And I try to pray for people as much as I can, but it's hard. But anyway, appreciate y'all. Take care.